Well, what's up, YouTube? So, 2025 season is getting close. We still got quite a bit of work to do. Um, we got some of our engine parts in, and our last video you seen that Dad had come up with this way of trying to make load sticks so we could put the bare chassis on the scales and see where the load numbers were with just the chassis itself. So we just basically made hard sticks. You could use switch tubes or whatever to get your adjustment right, but we didn't really have a whole bunch of switch tubes to spare, so we didn't do that. Um, so he built a set, and we adjusted the car to right height and then set the car on the scales to try to give us some chassis numbers. And the reason behind that is the big change that we're doing this year is we're going into a master built chassis from the Swing Arm Warrior. That's what we're going to try to be running at Tri-City this year. We are also kind of going with a different type of engine that honestly is going to be either good or bad. We don't know. The reason we did the load sticks is so we can kind of center this engine and set it in the car, and get the weight distribution even on four corners or close to even on four corners, so we don't have to struggle with spring rates and trying to get the car to handle with the type of engine that we're going to be using. We will be running the Warrior car. It's still together. We're going to take it apart, freshen up some bars, check some Heim joints, just go through it like a maintenance because we never really messed with that after we ran Brownstown. We are going to put a bigger small block in it. It'll be our 380 cubic inch small block, but it is a pretty monstrous, decent small block. Now, it's a standard degree small block, and that's what we run. We don't have a whole bunch of funding to go buy a NASCAR engine, SB2, and get that 18 and 14 and 12 degree head and get that 800, 700 horse out of a small block. Our small block's probably, our biggest one is a 420, and it probably makes somewhere about 580 horsepower. At Tri-City, it probably do all right, but we're trying to look for some more power. But we were limited on what engines we had. Our engines are great. They hold together, and we've had good luck out of them. We freshen them up here at the shop, and I go through and check tolerances and things that are important with these engines so that they survive. We've had some bad luck with some of the stuff, but mainly the last one was due to a head gasket, and it hydrolocked the cylinder, and it destroyed the engine. That stuff happens. They're race engines. But I will show you guys what's going on and what we're trying to do to get to that range of super late model with their type of power to run on the 3/8 Tri-City. Now, the 500 plus horsepower work great at a short track. Hell, our 604 makes pretty decent power. Now, it's not a legal 604. Camshaft was changed. It's a spare motor we run, and it makes good power. And honestly, there's one option that I thought about putting back in the swing arm car, but the 380, I need a set of piston rings and take it apart and put it back together, and we'll be good. But that's on the mechanic side. I put a shock package together. We had some newer shocks, some Advance, and QA1s for the front. I wish I had a full set of one or the other. I don't. But that's what we're going to be running. And they're fairly new. I'll just have to make sure the gas, there's no leaks, or there isn't any leaks that I can see, but put my pressure gauge on it, make sure gas isn't leaking from them, and they're working like they should. So I got those together. I just have to smash them and then basically set to master builts. That's what we're going to go off of, and then go from there and make our changes. Hopefully the car handles really well with the simple just going out there. This is the first time that we've had a decent starting point. The Warrior, we did and we didn't, but we've had to make quite a bit of changes to the chassis itself to get the car to handle well, handle it all. It didn't do too bad when we first got it, but it was nowhere near as fast going into the corner as it is now and everything else. So we're working on that, and I'm gonna get over to the shop, mess with the old man. But I'll show you guys what's going on with our decision making, and if it's right, wrong, or otherwise. I'm sure people are gonna have their opinions about it. And that's fine. I don't, tell me it doesn't work, doesn't mean I won't try. I feel like if you don't try new things, you never get ahead. But that's not really a new thing. They run this stuff, so not commonly. But let me get over there. Well, so anyway, deck's almost about put together. Dad's almost got it all together, ready to go and get riveted together the rest of the way. The cabin's in it. We fitted my seat. So I fit pretty good in the car. That's good. Yeah, and then just got to build the front fenders, front nose. We got the bumper hopefully close enough that we can make adjustments. But that's beside the point. The major difference that we're doing this season is I'll be running a newer chassis. This one is a 06 Warrior that I had ran last season. I like the car. Was it the fastest thing? No, but really that was due to some really terrible luck with an engine problem that we were chasing. We found the misfire issue being a set of MSD boxes and then 2 CDI boxes from MSD. One was new, one was used, so I was kind of, we got the other one back, so yeah, I've had my issues, everybody does, not everything's perfect, so, but then our last race, it kind of came to life, and we got some tuning done on the suspension, and got to work with the car a little bit, and it got better through the night. Now, was it a winner? No, but we had fun, and we learned a lot, so. Really, we have 331 cubic inch small block. It's aluminum headed. We knew it was a little down on compression when we went. So we knew it wasn't going to be making a ton of power, but we were able to run okay. We stayed mainly in the back, but we got the car to handle better. And like I said, learned and took away from what we had done to make the car better. It's a swing arm car, which just means basically Z-Link or whatever. You have one radius arm on the top of the bird cage going to the rear side of the chassis and the lower side of the bird cage coming into the front side of the chassis. This is swing arm Z-Link, and the only difference is with the swing arm, the coil or your coilover is mounted to the chassis and the lower trailing arm. Z-Link, it's mounted to the bird cage. It was an older CJ Rayburn style chassis, but this is a Warrior built kind of like a Rayburn. We had done some things to it to adjust where the ride heights made sense, and the bar angles were a little better. Now this one here is a newer, well, it's a master built, but it's newer than what we've ran. Master builts, I like their chassis. We've went through this one. It's pretty good. Now what we did was these would normally come like this and then come up. Well, you raise these rails, basically angle it there and then raise it to that point and shorten this bar up. And then the reason behind is because they would bottom out right here, where I'll show you. Where that is, I have actually bottomed this car out on the track as well, because we run softer right fronts. But to the point of what I was saying earlier, horsepower. We are trying to compete with a class of cars that have a ton of horsepower. Still, you know, driver skill matters, but this is not the way that most people will do it in any kind of circle track car or that nature. But we are going to run a 468 cubic inch big block Chevy in this master build. Now what we have done, we have made these so that the chassis was able to be put on the scales like load sticks. Now, how accurate they are, I don't know. I would assume it'd be the same as putting swedge tubes in it, but these were a lot easier to make and adjust to our ride heights. We set the engine in there, and we started playing with the weight of the car and the ballast, because obviously it's going to be a little heavier on the left side because these engines are more set to the left as we are. Now, the other thing is we don't want a bunch of understeer. So we do not want this engine too far forward over the steering. Creates understeer. So this engine has been set back, set over a little bit, but still square where the drive shaft will line up with the rear end and not be out of whack. The other thing is this has cast iron heads on it. We're not running cast iron heads. This is our mock-up engine. So I just got the crank in and all the stuff. Now this was a high performance big block, and it's actually originally in our 78 Camaro drag car. Now with the cast iron heads and the way that it was put together in that car, we had it on the dyno once. It made 690 horsepower at 705 foot-pounds of torque. And that was with the cast iron heads and not just mild stuff put into it. It was pretty good power. I am putting a lighter crank in it, better pot rods and pistons, better cylinder heads, better flow. We're going to port everything. So I would estimate as close as it was before, we'll be over the 700 horsepower range. And that'll be great. And I think that'll be enough to kind of compete with the super late models. Now, the reason we went this way is small blocks are great. And honestly, this right here, anyway, this is our 420. Now, this has got iron heads on it right now. It will not. I have a set of Brodox heads that'll go on it. It'll flow a little better. And it makes good power. It'll make good power, even more power, with the better heads to allow it to flow better. But with the angle, the valve angle and all that, they are still limited to how much you can make naturally aspirated. And cost effectiveness, I can make more power with the big block for a little about the same amount of money or less. It depends on how you go about doing your research and what you're getting for the engine. The parts we're getting for it, They're not cheap, but they're not the Taj Mahal of auto parts. So it should be good. We had it in our drag car for years, and it was a really, really great power horse to have in it. This is probably an unorthodox way of going about things, and people are going to say it's not going to work. We don't know if it's going to work or not. We don't know if the car's going to handle worse, and it's possibly it can. But we are making modified mounts so that we can still we're not doing anything to the chassis side of it to make the big block work other than making the mounts on the engine a little different to adapt to the way that these are, and here to set that engine back. That way, if we're having issues, we can just put one of our bigger small blocks in there and go out and get the car to handle well with the small block. Now, I'm kind of excited because this is going to be a lot of power, and it's going to be different. So we're going to go with it, and we're going to try it out. And, I mean, if you don't try new things, you never know. So, like I said, it's only going to be 468 cubic inches. You can make them much, 496, 502s, all that. I don't want to make a whole bunch of stroke or anything like that in this engine because it's going to be laboring for laps. So it was a 454. It's just going to be a 468. That's fine. And like I said, it'll make some good power, and I guess we'll turn some heads with it. You know what I mean? It's not going to sound the same as some of those small blocks and stuff that they're running now. Again, we could have just tried to go with a SB2 style NASCAR engine, small block that runs a 12-degree heads or 18 degrees and stuff like that. The problem I have with that is a lot of those are specialty engines and built, and they're a little bit harder for me to. The lower end, not so much, but a lot of those, to be rebuilt in house and cost effective for us, they can be expensive. I blow one of those up, my whole season's over. I can find big block Chevys a lot easier than I can find those for the price difference. Jesus, we're talking about 604s that are going between $10,000 and $15,000. A small block Chevy with aluminum heads and hydraulic lifters, and yes, it's a roller, and we have a 604, but it's not a sealed 604, and it is a good engine, but still, $15,000 to make maybe 450 horsepower in a 604. I don't know. That crate racing has its own thing going on. So like I said, this is the reason behind this is basically we put numbers together, and we thought about, because there's a couple options there that we could get a used. There was one that was 18-degree engine, and it was a Vic Hill, but you're talking $25,000, and I still want to have fun racing. I don't want to, go out and something happens to the engine and we can't afford to go back out. So that's the point of this. We're just trying to make the same amount of power for something that I know we can replace if something happens to it. A lot easier than a NASCAR engine or what everybody else is running. Because we got buddies that if their motors go, they're pretty much done for the season, and that's not fun. It puts you in a depressed state and not cool. So, but we do have, we have a ton of small blocks that are together, and like I said, they're good engines. But we're gonna try this out, try to make some power. Like I said, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be different. But tell us what you think in the comments. Subscribe if you want to see and follow how it does. Like I said, this might be a complete disaster. Might not even worth all the work that we put into it. But at the end of the day, I'm not upset, because if it doesn't work out, I'm going to put it back in the Camaro, and we're going to have our street drag car again, and it's going to be fun in there. So I hope it does. I mean, we're not just gonna go out there and expect this thing to handle like it's on rails. We're gonna have to make adjustments. So we understand that it's gonna be difficult. It was difficult with the understanding and going into a swing arm car that we have never messed with before. But again, it made our racing affordable. That chassis didn't cost us $12,000 used. It was $1,500, and it was brand new. It was just stored away for most of its life. So I mean, we got a brand new chassis for $1,500. Yeah, we had to put some work into it, but we knew it wasn't bent. We knew that it was straight enough to go out and run and have a good time and figure some stuff out. Now, we have welded and modified that chassis because honestly, nobody is going to care about that because it's an outdated chassis. But we just put our own little updates on it to make it better. Now, the Masterbuilt, we're not going to do that too. We'll keep it Masterbuilt. Working with them, we've been able to get a lot of information and stuff. Now, like I said, and the other thing is we don't know. We're going to go with the spring rates that Masterbuilt says to put in there, but we might have to up the spring rate with the weight difference. Now, we did learn, because we had a small block in there, it's really not, after we set the engine back and where the weight was kind of better distributed, there's not much difference than when the small block was on in there with the iron heads. So we were pretty happy about that. So they gave us a lot of confidence that this might work. Now, the other thing is we're going with, hold on. I did this on Illustrator. It's a quick illustration of what we're going to try to get this car to look like. I think it'll look good. It'll be neat, clean, simple. But I'll have some merch up we're going to put the big block on there and kind of make a big deal about it. Because, again, you don't see it, a big block in a late model, ever. So you will now, and we'll see how it works out. So, again, follow, like, because we're going to keep on with this project. And everybody, I mean, if you're curious on how it's going to work out, and maybe it'll work out for somebody else's team, just keep watching. You'll see if it does. You'll have a good one. But, yep, that's it, boys.